What's up, KH Nation? It's Kevin Jackowitz here, and today I'm going to do part 3 of A Walk in My Shoes. I've talked a lot about the first probably 25 years of my life. I talked about how I was incredibly bullied in school, how I had a distant family, how things were just very rough all the way around. I talked about how I was very sheltered during my childhood, and then at 17 years old, my stepdad decided he was done raising me and let me fend for myself and let me be homeless. Kicked me out of the house, left me in below freezing conditions in northern Indiana with no food, no nothing. 17 years old. For no other reason than he was just done being a dad, however much of a dad he ever was. And then I talked about how I went on the streets and I just learned how sick and depraved people are firsthand. How I've been robbed, how I've been raped more than once, how I was even a unwelcome or unwanted guest in somebody's house for a while. I was held captive when I was very young and very trusting and put myself in a very, very bad situation. And of course, all of these things, I talked about how I shoved it down, I didn't deal with it, and that it later started to resurface itself. Well, let's talk about 25 years up to say like 30 years. Sorry, I'm a little dry. So, here I am, bouncing from place to place at this point. I have really no ambition at this point to, change what's happening, because this is what I'm already accustomed to. And that might sound funny to some, but it's amazing what you get used to when that's all you've known. So I was living a very transient lifestyle. I was going from place to place however I could get there, back and forth between Florida and Indiana and all points in between, in Texas, in Tennessee for a while. And there was just nothing stable about my life. I had learned how to live in the moment and just do nothing but appreciate the moment, because that was all I ever had. And it started to have very big adverse effects on me. Namely, I was not planning for my future. Any money I got, hey, I don't know that this is going to be my situation tomorrow, so let me go ahead and put my money towards things that I want to get. Movies, CDs, whatever, games. I was very frivolous with everything. And of course that winds up biting you in the ass at some point. And I wound up in Sarasota, Florida. And it all started because I'd gotten a hold of my mom and I was in real desperate need of a place, and I still had this you owe me mentality with her. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's how I felt. And there turned into a situation where she was living with a guy in Venice, Florida, and she was about to leave his place to get back with an ex-boyfriend. Well, I didn't know that. So I'm assuming that I'm going to go there to stay with her, but in reality is she's going to get back with her ex-boyfriend, and she is using me to substitute her as a roommate for this guy that she was staying with. Well, the problem with that is that this guy she was staying with is gay and had this huge attraction to me, of course. And it turned into just a very stupid situation that I did not want to be a part of, and it became insane. And so I've got this guy who's coming on to me, and at this point, we all know that I am not going to deal well with that if you paid attention to my history. So needless to say, that didn't last very long. I wound up homeless in a town I knew nothing about. So I get to a point where I have to leave for a few weeks. And it was because I was homeless, and my brother's girlfriend at the time, Cecilia, had offered me a place to stay. And here's the thing with this whole situation. My brother, I don't understand him at times. Actually, I don't understand him ever. He is cocky, he is arrogant, he is a downright asshole most of the time. I say that openly and freely because I don't talk to him. I have nothing to do with him. I think that he is one of the world's biggest pricks. And he's always had this view of me that I'm not entirely sure where it comes from or what it was. But we had a strained relationship, for sure, obviously. And so, you know, he's gone in Iraq or whatever, you know, he's in a war zone, so I can understand and appreciate that, and I do. So his girlfriend invites me to have a place to stay. You know, there was nothing on the sideline. And so I get there, I literally have a job within 12 hours of getting there. I work my ass off the whole time I'm there. I'm trying to contribute. And then Tim hears about it and he's like, well, nope, you're not going to stay there. Blah, 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 whatever. And I don't know what his reasons were to this day. Don't really care. I've never really had my family there for me, and this was no exception. So as far as I'm concerned, you know, it is what it is. It just goes to his nature with everything else. So I'm talking to a friend on the phone while I'm in Tennessee at his place, you know, where his girlfriend stays. And, I had made a couple of friends when I was in Venice, Florida. I was walking down the road with a guitar one day, and this other guy plays guitar, notices me, and we start talking music and stuff. And then he starts talking about the church that he went to. And I've never been a Christian person. I think religion is usually pointless. But through him, I met this guy named Ben. And Ben is like, you know, man, I see your situation. You know, if you need a place to stay, I'm sure I can offer you a place here for a while. That was with him and his family, which was pretty big because he really didn't know me that well. I wound up going and staying with his church family. And I was working with Ben, trying to establish something. I was, you know, doing some yard work and arborism. Then I started working with a girl from the church that works with Ben, does horticulture. And unfortunately, you know, I have a chance now to finally do something with myself. Like, this is probably my first very big, real opportunity to fix what's broken. But the problem is that I hadn't dealt with what's broken yet. I hadn't tried to face it at all. And that's where everything was wrong. You know, it was just me at this point. I can't blame anything else. I can't blame my history. I can't blame what happened to me. You know, it was just the fact that I was broken, and, you know, I hate to say it, but sometimes that is a valid excuse. People will never understand, you know, going through these many traumatic instances, it changes you and it leaves you stained, and it really does something to your psyche. So I'm trying to make something of myself, but, you know, I also at the same time, I want these people to like me, and I want to fit in, and I want to, you know, experience this normal life thing that everybody has. You know, I see this family, and they're very loving and giving and nurturing to themselves as well as to me, and I can't say enough about this entire family. One thing I will, you know, say for sure is that they're all Christian, but they were never fake about it. They all believed, and they all, you know, truly wanted to live the best life they could. Now, whether I agree with that life or not is irrelevant. They were great people. And so, you know, like Christmas would come along, and I don't have much money saved up, and I want to get everybody presents, so of course that's what I do, and I leave myself broke. Not the smartest thing to do. But in this situation, you know, it's like I felt so bad to not be able to do anything for some people. And that mentality carried on a lot for me. It's carried on in very recent years, up until probably recently, maybe like this last year, where I'm dealing with medical issues now, and kind of almost in the same boat as far as finances go. And this time I was just like, you know what, I have to rein that in. I have to be like, I'm sorry, I just can't do anything. And as bad as I feel about that, there's nothing I can do about it, because my life is already broken enough. I can't focus on, being a good person all the time. And it's certainly not because these people aren't great to me. It's just that if, I keep giving everything I have, there's nothing left for me. So that was a big problem when I was there. It was kind of back to the living in the moment thing. It was, do what feels right at the moment, but don't plan for the future. And that, it was bad. And other things that were bad about it were the fact that, Ben has a sister named Katie, who I absolutely adored from day one. And I found out she adored me. Now here's the problem with that. The horticulturalist that I told you that I was working with that knew Ben was a female. I played drums for the church. She played violin for the church. We're around each other a lot. We're both in next to nothing in the Florida heat, working in people's yards. And so the inevitable happened. We wound up having sex a few times, which of course brings a great sense of guilt to any good Christian girl, even though she repeated that many, many times. And so it created this weird situation where I had sex with this girl who was actually, she came down from Boston with this family. I think it was Boston. So she was like me, somebody they took under their wing, except she actually came down across the country with these people. So it was like Ben's sister in a way. So that had happened, and then we had to have a big family meeting about that. It was just awkward all the way around. But then I found out that Katie liked me. And I'm the type of guy at this point in my life where I have this ingrained nature where I have to have acceptance and love and things like that from people. That I just have to have it. You go through my life and you're like, okay, well, you can kind of understand why. And so we started dating with a lot of family restrictions, and I mean a lot of family restrictions. And I get why they were doing it, and they were probably right in doing it, but I didn't handle it like a safeguard. I handled it like rejection, like I wasn't good enough, or whatever. And I tried to be respectful at all times when it came to the family and dealing with Katie. I probably opened a couple of doors with Katie that maybe hadn't been opened before. And so, they decided that they were going to set me up to stay with another guy in a different house, not with the family anymore, just out of, safety reasons for their daughter. And, but the problem is, again, I hadn't dealt with finances very well. So I had nothing to fall back on. And so literally from 25 to 30 years old, I would have moments like this where, I would be able to stay with somebody for a while. I wasn't ever afraid of working. I could work my ass off. I work circles around most people when I'm healthy enough. And so that was never an issue with me. My problem was controlling my money and controlling my emotions in a situation. Both I was very terrible at. And so my life literally became this cycle of, being comfortable, live in the moment, don't prepare, wind up falling on my face, maybe even be homeless again for a few, repeat. And so I lost a lot of time. I really did. I was probably 30, let's say probably 33, 34 years old before I finally broke the cycle. Now keep in mind, I'm only 39 now. And I'm certainly not perfect. I still have a lot of baggage and brokenness within me. And, thankfully nowadays I have a lot more perspective. It's taken me getting older and maturing and realizing, yo man, you can't keep blowing money on everything that you think you need to. And when you have a chance, you better jump on it. Unfortunately, that has come on kind of late, actually very late in life, and it's also come very late at the same time that I've developed a lot of health issues that have really put me down. And when I say put me down, I mean I try to go out and work. I physically cannot do it. I don't know what's happening with my body, but it's just not allowing me to function right. And there are times where, like, even when I'm doing like these videos, it like, some people don't notice. Some people, if they've had experiences, they might pick up on it right away, where I'm trying to talk and communicate, and then all of a sudden you see me, like, maybe I'm just a little bit off, or I forget what I'm saying, or something like that. And that's actually because I get hit with either a sharp pain, or I get hit with like a huge wave of anxiety. And for people who don't have anxiety, let me explain something. You're never going to understand, you're never going to get it unless you've had the experience. Anxiety, I've heard people be like, oh, well, you just got to calm down. No, that's not how it works. It's a mental disorder in a lot of ways. And it comes from a lot of different things. Some could say easily post-traumatic stress from my life and my situations. And I think that, everything that I've gone through qualifies me. Let me make one remark about that when talking about my brother and things like that. He went through a war, and I couldn't imagine what he's gone through. But I was out on the streets every day wondering if today's going to be the day I die. And there was no fucking war to fight. There was nobody, there was a specific enemy. I was just out there trying to survive. Dealing with knives at my throat, guns in my face, getting my ass handed to me, rapes, being held captive. And so he could never understand what I went through. Just the same as I can never understand what he went through. And who's to say what's worse, to be very honest. I went through my own war. And people might be offended by me saying that. But when you deal with the shit that you have to deal with like that, believe me, man, it's not an emotional war. It's survival. It's you figure out how to survive or you die. So I think that's important for people to get, and that's why I say post-traumatic stress disorder is a very, very valid excuse for me having super high anxiety levels. And I've tried to deal with it. It's not easy. I try to, be the alpha male and, deal with my problems. I'm a man. But when this stuff hits, man, sometimes it's incredibly debilitating. But the bigger debilitating part with me now is the actual physical problems that I have, like the anxiety. It's bad, but it's not nearly as bad as the physical pain that I deal with now. Especially with my stomach issues, which actually could be caused by the anxiety. One does exacerbate the other. That is medically proven. So, I mean, it's a tough situation to be in. It really is. And my life, it is carried on until I did finally deal with these emotions and try to face them head on. And one thing I've learned, and I've said this in another post, is that talking about the things that you go through helps you. It's facing it, it's putting it out there so that other people can help you and you kind of understand better yourself what's going on. So those are thoughts for people who are going through hard times, man. Don't ever bury it. And I've said that before, but it's important to say. So that literally was like probably 25 to 30, maybe even to 34 years old. That was my existence. I went through a lot of things, man, and I didn't know how to handle life. And so now I was at a point where maybe I can try to handle life, but mentally I wasn't there. And that sucked for me because it really set me behind. Like, I am so far behind in my life right now from where I should be. And I thank God that I have people that care about me enough to really help me through this. It does help a lot, and I don't know that I give some of these people enough recognition because, man, honestly, if it wasn't for them, who knows where I'd be. So, yeah, I think that's where I'm going to leave off for right now for this part of A Walk in My Shoes. I think I'm going to catch everybody up with my life from, say 34 to where I'm at now in my next post. And then I want to start really detailing the road to recovery and maybe some of the cooler parts of my life, because one of the weird things about my life is, even though I've had many, many bad experiences, I've done a lot of traveling, I've been all over the country, and I've had a lot of very good experiences too, which I haven't really shared yet. And my biggest, most fun things as of late, I've learned to really love going to big concert festivals and stuff now that I can afford to do things like that. It's very fun. I love the energy. So that's where we're at, and that's where we're headed. And I've always said that if anybody's ever going through anything that I'm talking about, feel free to, if you want to talk to me personally, my Facebook is linked in my YouTube wall. So never hesitate. I'm always willing to talk to anybody if they have serious issues they want to talk about, because God knows I should be a master at dealing with them at this point. So, ladies and gentlemen, have a great day. Be kind to one another. My name is Kevin Jackowitz with the Caged Review. Caged Nation out.